Subscribe to our YouTube channel and press the bell icon to get the latest updates.
Now, Facebook has been under fire in different jurisdictions, in India for sure, on its own procedures when it comes to content moderation. And I was just wondering how is the metaverse or how is Meta going to respond to? Are you going to do something new in India when it comes to responding to not only the criticism, but also the law?
Yeah, I think three parts to it, Rudra. One, I think the point that you mentioned about people keeping pace with technology, I do have to call out that because we are a young country, I do think it provides us a fundamental competitive advantage that we have a young population that can embrace change and adopt technologies probably more than any other society in the world. I think that's our strength. I think to the second part of the question in terms of the continued scrutiny on us as a company with a particular focus on content moderation, a few reactions to that, Rudra. One, I absolutely think there should be scrutiny on us. We are a consequential platform both in India and around the world. I think when you have a company that owns Facebook and Instagram and WhatsApp, we have a lot of pride that these are platforms that add a lot of value for consumers and businesses every day, and nowhere more so true than in India. And yet, I think that also means that a lot of what is happening in the world, we have more than 3.5 billion people on our platform every month. It is inconceivable that we won't reflect both the good and the bad of what happens in the world. And I think we just need to make sure that because the enormous amount of energy on the platform and the way it is used by people on the platform are to drive good, that we do as much as we can to limit harm. And I do think that as a company, Rudra, we've really leaned in. Since 2016, we have spent $13 billion on the agenda of safety and security. Just $5 billion in this year alone. We have more than 40,000 people, most of whom have been hired in the last 5 years to enable the agenda of safety and security. So the intent is there. Our incentives are aligned to do the right thing. I do think, Rudra, the question that a lot of astute observers like you should be asking is, where are you relative to other tech companies as well? And I think, we are proud that not just in the absolute sort of scale, but even relative to other companies and even relative to our own scale, we do feel that we are leading in terms of the approaches and the policies and the investments we are making to limit harm. And the last one, Rudra, is the question is this all translating to outcomes, right? It's not just about the intent, it's not just about the actions, but are we actually impacting what happens on our platforms? And I have a number to share. The prevalence of, given you were speaking about content moderation, the prevalence of hate speech on our platforms is 0.03%. That number has come down dramatically over the last few years to 0.03%. It's not zero. I think we have zero tolerance for content that violates our community standards, content that you and I can agree has no place in a society like ours. But that doesn't mean that it can get to zero, but we will do everything we can to reduce the ability of bad actors to do harm.
So as you can imagine, Ajit, I've got at least 6 questions that are primarily focused on content moderation harms. But I think you've given a argument, you've put some statistics out there. But as Meta kind of builds out its future, Ajit, do you think even say, let's forget about comparing with other tech companies, is sort of societal engagement and different modes of being transparent about whether it's algorithmic biases or whether it's methods on which you're even designing questions for community guidelines, is that one of the objectives of Meta as it kind of moves forward with all the subsidiaries, Facebook, WhatsApp, so on and so forth?
Absolutely. And I think, Rudra, we have been vocal that if you look at some of the conversations that we have had around the world in terms of the relationship between tech companies and societies, the role of regulation, what should be allowed, not allowed, who gets to make calls on that. I think we've been consistent in advocating for a while that we do think there is a need for a new set of rules, that we invite regulation. And I think you alluded to two areas that we have been vocal about. One is transparency about how data is used. We do believe that societies around the world can benefit from greater clarity on requiring companies to be transparent about how data is used. And second is, because this conversation is quite live and has received a lot of attention, and you raised it, um, how do we ensure that people still have agency in a world where algorithms still have a huge role to play? So how do we make sure that consumers, users of platform like ours, still has agency in terms of determining what they get to see and what they engage with, in the context of algorithms playing a huge role in trying to understand what someone like me would want to see or would want to engage with. So on both fronts, we are clear that we welcome regulation. I think we have useful points of view to contribute to it, but I do think the world will benefit from a global framework, especially the democratic one.